Welcome, one and all, to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. We've all had issues with our home. We've all had issues possibly with our business. A lot of the time when it comes to leaks, though, we don't realize what's going on, or we see something, but we don't know how to address it, how to deal with it. Water Cleanup of Florida is here to help you with any leak detection or leak issues. Just give them a call, 954-579-0356, for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and their entire team, plus the availability 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, they are who you want to contact if you have any issues with leaks. On top of that, after they do come out and repair it, with their ability of being fully licensed, insured, and certified, they can make sure to take care of any remnants so your home or business looks good as new. And they service Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade counties. So just give them a call. Give them a call, 954-579-0356. Again, 954-579-0356. And check out their website, WCUFL.com, with any leak issues. Plus, you can check them out on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Water Cleanup FL. And just to be sure, we always want to check Google, right, to see what other people are saying, what other experiences others have had. With over 70 plus 5-star reviews on Google, they will assure you, look, I've talked about it, they help me, but you know what? Just to be safe, it's always cool to check out on Google, see what others have experienced. Water Cleanup of Florida, you have the schmutz, we have the guts. Talked a lot about the Miami Dolphins lately. We've had this gentleman on the last few weeks to talk about the Miami Dolphins. They continue to raise excitement down here in South Florida after putting up 48 points in a preseason game. Every quarterback looked good. The receivers look good. The running backs look good. The defense looks strong. We talked about more about the Miami Dolphins today with preeminent South Florida sports columnist Dave Hyde here on the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Lubie. On the 5 Reasons.
This fine Tuesday edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest and one Mike Lubie Lubitz. Soon, when are you going to start airing Lubie at Large again? I think you really need to get back into that. Lubie at Large. I always enjoyed that segment on the radio show for the, 2 times that it lasted before you said, hey, fuck this. I'm not getting paid. I'm not doing it anymore. Anyway, we're happy to be with you here in South Florida Live. And I'm sure that voice was familiar to this next gentleman that joins us here on the program. And it's always a pleasure to dignify the show with the presence of the premier columnist here on the South Florida newspaper scene. We've been paying a lot of homage to the newspaper, and it is true what Andy said. Bowels work better with a newspaper in your hand than they do with a phone. So I'm still inclined to pick up a physical copy of the paper. It's a highlight of my day. And we welcome one of the distinguished newspaper men of all time, Dave Hyde, to the program.
Oh, my God.
David, how are you, my friend?
I think that should be our promo now for the Sun Sentinel. Bowels work better with a newspaper in your hand. I can see that on buses going by through the city, can't you?
A fat old Jew on the toilet, just refusing to let the old habit die. Join the modern world. It's costing me $1,000 a year for this New York Post. I could pay $8 and get it online, but forget about it. It's just the way it is. David, how are you, my friend? How's everything going?
Doing well, getting ready, gearing up for football. It's we're here, right around the corner.
Well, there's been a lot, and I almost broke down the other day. There were a couple of reasons I was going to buy a Sun Sentinel. One, somehow Mike Mayo was featured after his 31 years there, talking about his retirement as a food critic in one of the magazines that usually is an insert in the paper, although it wasn't in the copy that Mayo bought himself. And then it had been featured, and I saw this, I guess, on Facebook. Somebody had posted up that you had done a profile of Mike McDaniel. Is this correct, Dave Hyde? Did you have an in-depth profile in the Sun Sentinel of the Miami Dolphins head coach?
I did. I talked to Mike McDaniel about his career, how he got here, really, who he is, and very fascinating guy. Great, unique story. Brian Flores was a unique story coming out of the projects of Brooklyn, and Mike McDaniel's equally unique story in a different way. Just from the story starts out. He walking through his family home when he's 5, and he looks at the pictures and realizes he doesn't look like anything like his dad's family. Because he's biracial, and his dad's family is black, and it goes from there. Just he didn't fit in anywhere. He doesn't check any box, and yet he checks all the boxes, which led him to, who he is. He can talk to anybody, because he's, from his family life to his, he's an alcoholic, and he talked about that. And so he has the ability through all this to be able to communicate and relate to pretty much anybody.
Well, what's interesting, Dave, is sort of what we've talked about with you and other people, that sincerity, that candor, that he's comfortable sharing as an NFL coach. Even, look, assistants barely talk, let alone head coaches. Like, this is year one. We saw what Flores was. We even saw, look, Philbin was a nice guy, but none of them want to give away anything. He's the opposite. He'll give away everything with a smile on his face. Like, where does he get that from? It's just, I always find that so intriguing that he's so different than every other coach by 180 degrees.
Well, I talked to him about that, and his feeling is, and you are right. For instance, talking about him being an alcoholic, I asked maybe 2 questions, and he took it from there. Yeah. He just talked about it, and about the things he went through, and he said, if anybody can get through this, I can, and how he told his wife, this won't be a problem, I'll never let you down like this again, and et cetera. But he talked about, his role as a head coach. He thinks that's part of his role is to, be up front with the public. He has no problem talking about. I mean, he's not giving state secrets about what the team's doing on Sunday, but yeah, there's no reason. I know, like Brian Flores. He 15 years under Bill Belichick will ruin you in front of the media. Yeah. And that's a role. That is a role for a head coach to communicate. Jimmy realized that as well as anybody, and Mike McDaniel realizes it, that there's a that's not just part of your job, but it's part of your role to set a narrative sometimes for the team. Look at how he set the narrative on Tua Tagovailoa this offseason. Very positive, very upbeat, talk about the things he's doing at length. And, and that changed in some form the public narrative around him. And so, I mean, anybody who's smart enough to use that platform, and Mike McDaniel is, and has the ability to talk, and Mike McDaniel has the ability to not only talk, but to it was interesting talking to him. He's talking about words and how he thinks words are valuable, and he appreciates people who use them well, and everything. And so he's thought about this. These are, words matter to him, and the ability to communicate to anybody on any different level matter to him too. So it's like I said, he's a unique path. There's a lot of ways up the mountain, and he's blazing a unique one.
Dave Hyde with us here, outstanding columnist, had the profile in the Sun Sentinel of Mike McDaniel, who does seem like somebody that you would want to talk to, whether you're in his business or just a fan in general. And he's very engaging and seems to be with everybody. A couple of things impressed me. I'm so hoping this works. Because, it's a nice departure from the usual hard-on dickhead football coach mentality of, you do it my way or the highway. And, the whole run through a brick wall for me. And this guy already has been very engaging in a lot of ways that make you feel like, wow, there's a level of sincerity there that exceeds even what you would anticipate from somebody that comes across this way. He goes to this Tua charity event. And, he's like playing with flaming drumsticks, on this giant tom-tom. And, right into it, gets right involved. And then I saw him talking about Jason Jenkins, who you also wrote about in the Sun Sentinel, the Dolphins executive who passed away at 47, who everybody loved because he was a media liaison for the team. So anybody that covered the team knew him well, and then was just an absolute pillar of charitable efforts in the community, spearheading all of the Dolphins' efforts on those fronts and doing it very well. But I mean, McDaniel was uncontrollably sobbing about the fact that he knew this guy only a brief period of time, but knew him to be like a real mensch, and he just really brought off this sincerity that made you feel like this guy is different, Dave Hyde.
Yeah, I was surprised in that press conference. I mean, it was look, that was a tough night, Saturday night. Jason died Saturday. I don't know the exact time, but before the game he had died. But the players weren't told until after the game. Mike McDaniel tells them, then he comes right to the press conference. So, it was pretty emotional telling the players about Jason's death, and then comes right to the press conference, and he was, his emotions are out there, and you could see how not just affected he is, but in the larger picture, how much people mean to him. It's people in the organization, people he now works with. That is who he is. Most football coaches you've been around are withdrawn for the most part, and as you said, don't reveal too much of their thoughts. And Mike's the opposite, where he'll show you how he's feeling and who he is in any conversation. I think certainly in the short term, this can work really well for the Dolphins in that. You're playing the opposite game here. You had a quiet, tough defensive coach the last several years, and now you go to an open, upbeat, very relatable and an optimistic offensive coach. Ultimately winning will define him. Does he make it or not? But you can see the tools he has to help this team get there.
How long have you been doing this, Dave Hyde? You've been doing this stuff a long time, correct? Over 30 years.
Too long.
At the Sun Sentinel? Yep. Well, I mean,
I started at the Herald in '85. I came down here with a 1975 Ventura with no air conditioning, and drove that because I had no money for a year. No air conditioning in the car. That just isn't possible.
That is not a good condition to come to Florida under. There's no doubt about that. I mean, keeping the window open, especially '85, probably it had eased off where there was a possibility of being shot on the turnpike. But that's come back now with road rage. It was drugs back then when I first came here, and you'd see like some bullet-riddled car, pull up next to you, and you're like, they're still shooting at this guy. What is that? Anyway, I mean, the point I was going to make, and you wrote about Jason Jenkins, and a lot of people don't know Jason Jenkins and wouldn't know the name, and yet we dealt with him, and it seemed like, when I started doing this like 50 years ago, organizations were much more welcoming. You felt like you were a part of the whole thing, even if you were in the media and you were supposed to be unbiased and nonpartisan about your opinions. I think there was an understanding there, though, that you also were welcome, to these organizations, to get inside of them and get stuff like you did with Mike McDaniel. Jenkins, really, I mean, he was a young guy, but it was old school in that everybody liked this guy, and as a liaison to the media. I don't understand why more teams don't grasp onto this. I mean, there's nothing better than to have these guys feel like, they're on your side, the team. I mean, you want to be treated, in a gentlemanly type fashion and in a fair fashion. And Jenkins really was the epitome of that. I mean, he made everybody feel good about dealing with the Miami Dolphins.
Well, let's not overdo this. Part of Jason's job was if you wrote something that, for instance, if you wrote something about Steve Ross, he would call you and talk about why he didn't like that column. And so,
oh yeah, okay.
I mean, that was his role.
He came
I
after
never
me
had
a
that
couple
experience.
times. Yeah, Defo never had that. He came after me a couple times too because of tweets.
Look, everybody loved Jason. Okay, I'm not, but
Yeah.
let's talk in the reality of his role. Yes, he was very welcome. He'd come around and greet everybody,
Yep.
and every team has a media relations person. Jason's role to me was different in that he's branched out into the community and charity and foundation works and man, there were times I'd see him and I say, because he put it out on Twitter, I say, Jason, what did you go to 10 events yesterday? I don't know how he had a body double or something like that because of the amount of work he did in that, in putting the Dolphins out and helping businesses or high schools or whatever, some youth group in that wanted to come to the complex or needed some help. That to me, he redefined how teams go into the community in some regard, because he pushed the Dolphins brand out there and helped a lot of people in the community.
He has a book coming out, Swagger with Jimmy Johnson, and that's going to hit the stands and all available outlets in November. I would imagine most people are buying that online. Dave Hyde, Sun Sentinel, South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist with us here, sports columnist, extraordinarily talented gentleman who's been doing it, as we said. I mean, what is that, 37 years here in South Florida. All right, we've talked about many things concerning the team. You actually watched them in the preseason.
Yep.
Lubie was excited. I mean, going long there, first down. You got Tua in the lineup. Want to see what this offense might look like. We're hoping for like circus-like, approach from Mike McDaniel with his innovations and inclination to come up with stuff that defenses are going to have trouble stopping. What do you think? I mean, the number is very tepid. We've been discussing this with a lot of people. 8 and a hook. Which would mean that the odds makers, these guys, that if they were running the country, there would be no inflation, and gas, what would be 50 cents a gallon, with their accuracy in predicting numbers and outcomes, they're not as optimistic as other people are. How do they win less games this year than they did last year, which is what the common belief is, at least according to Las Vegas?
Yeah, I think how they will is a couple things. One is the AFC is stacked.
Yeah.
You look at the AFC and go down the list of teams, and it'd be nice to be in the NFC against those teams right now. This is as talented as the AFC has been since, I don't know how far you want to go back, but and so that'd be that'd be one, and the two is the obvious. The offensive line has an injury in the wrong place, and the lack of depth there shows. Or it doesn't develop. Tua doesn't take the steps that it looks like has a real good chance to take, right, from the off season and preseason. And the defense that in the last half a year was dominant, but dominant against backup quarterbacks, and then it got exposed at Tennessee. Doesn't take the steps. Yeah, a young defense can, and so that'd be the way they. If you're going to draw up why Las Vegas is saying 8.5 wins, that'd be the reason. You can extrapolate those a whole different way and come out with 11 wins too. So, the interesting part about, when you break down their season, their schedule, the first 4 games are the toughest in the league. New England, at Baltimore, Buffalo here, and then where are they? They're at Cincinnati on Thursday night. Those are 4 playoff teams. Last year, Baltimore would have been. They were the most injured team in the league, and it went down to the last game. So that's as tough as. Then you have about a 6 or 7 week stretch where they might be favored in every game, and then it gets real tough at the end. They go out to the West Coast. They play San Francisco and the Rams, and then go to Buffalo. In a 3-week stretch. So you come out of they look at the start. If they come out of it 2-2, that's a good way to start the season.
All right, that 8 and a hook looms large to me. I'm inclined to go over, which in this business, I know we've discussed this. If your team's not going to win the championship, which is always the best possible result in terms of fan interest, then they need to be really bad. So you find yourself rooting against the home team in every game, in every sport. But I think that changes this year for me. That changes.
About 8.5 wins. It's hard to see them going under 8 right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
I could see 9 wins. I could see. In fact, I think I predicted 9 wins, but you could see 11 wins too. 8 wins seems it's harder for me to see them
failure.
Going.
Yes, that's bad.
Yeah. So, they aren't going to go 17-0. We know, right?
No,
we agree. Even
they only need to win as many as last
year.
They were 1-7 for God's sake, with a roster
that
wasn't as good as this.
This is as optimistic an off season. This is as optimistic I've seen Dolphin fans in a long time, and let's admit it. There's some irrational optimism in off seasons for Dolphin fans, but look, the roster is as good as it's been in a long time for the Dolphins, and you start with the 2 top receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, assuming Waddle's on the field. That's dynamic. Going back to Duper and Clayton to the last time they had something like that out there. So there are reasons for optimism if you're a Dolphins fan. There are also reasons if you've been scarred for your optimism in the last 20 years. So, I'm sure a lot of people are holding back a little and saying, well, let's see what happens.
Another day, more Dolphins chatter. Hey, the preseason's done. The regular season's a little over a week away. We're excited. The Dolphins are putting up points. The defense looks strong like it did to finish the season last year. Expectations are there. They're low nationally, but locally, we're feeling it. Dave Hyde just made it feel even better. He wrote a piece about Mike McDaniel, a guy, the new head coach for the Miami Dolphins, who's done it different. And we talk about how honest he is. I just find it refreshing that he's this honest. Hopefully it'll work. We do say goodbye to Jason Jenkins, Senior VP of Communication for the Dolphins. Look, if you were tough on the Dolphins, Jason did reach out and ask why, but he never silenced you. At least me, he didn't. And we were the home of the Dolphins for a while, and I deal with Jason a lot. And if I would tweet something, he'd come at me and be like, what was that about? But he never told me to stop. He never told me what to say. And he was always smiles, always a great dude. The last few years, I haven't talked to him as regularly, but whenever we would talk, whenever I would see him, he was always kind, sweet. What a great man, and amazing with the community. Really, the Dolphins were always good with the community. Jason Jenkins took it to another level, did his day job, and really embraced that and made the Dolphins one of the preeminent franchises in all of sports when it came to getting into the community and helping out. Rest in peace, Jason Jenkins. Really, really tragic, sad news we heard over this weekend. Our thoughts and love goes to his family, friends, everyone touched by Jason Jenkins. Dave Hyde talked a lot about it, wrote a piece about Jason Jenkins as well. So we talked about all that with Dave. Tomorrow morning, we'll talk more sports with you. Check us out, 7 to 9 on South Florida Live. Google YouTube, South Florida Live, Google YouTube. The Defo Show with Lubie, or on the socials, including Facebook, at SoFly Live. Check us out on our national podcast. The Believe Network will have a lot of stuff on football this week. BLEAV.com, search After Hours. And most days, our South Florida content right here. The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.